Recording in progress. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And this will be I'll keep it to about 40 minutes. So hopefully I keep it super interesting for you, and you'll forget about the worries of the world and just be taken on an expedition to Antarctica and the Arctic today. So as I said, thanks for joining, everyone, and thanks for organising, Lara. Those that don't know me, I'm Tennille from Quark. Some of you might be familiar with me from my previous roles, but I've just joined Quark Expeditions 2 months ago, and we're super excited to have joined this partnership with Creative Cruising, and we look forward to working with you in the future, and especially towards the end of the year and the next year as we navigate through this post-COVID travel. Whoops, just get my slides working. Right, there we go. So as I said, I'm Tennille. I joined Quark 2 months ago, but I'm not new to the polar space. I've been in the travel industry for 20 years, and I've actually been selling polar expeditions for 12 or 13 of those years now. So I've come across from 5 years at Chimu, where we sold 30 different ships. So safe to say I've got great knowledge of the polar industry. And I guess it all started for me in 2019. I went on an expedition to the Arctic with Quark, and I guess it was that trip that kind of led me to where I am now, because I genuinely say it, and not in a sales rep spiel, like I genuinely mean it. The trip with Quark just blew me away from the minute I boarded that vessel to the minute I got off. The professionalism and the passion of the expedition team, the operations, and every single thing about the brand just really impressed me. And it was that trip that I thought I'd love to work for Quark one day. So funny how things work out. And here I am, and I couldn't be happier. It's such an amazing company. So today I hope to tell you a little bit about Quark Expeditions, who we are, how we started, and just about what we do and some of the places that we go to. So we have been around for 30 years, and I think it's really important to know that we've got such 3 decades of experience in selling the polar regions, and that's all we do, polar. We're like the pioneers in polar travel. As we know, there's many companies jumping on the expedition train, so to speak, but we kind of own the train station. That's what we specialize in. It's our bread and butter, and we don't have plans to navigate into South America, Africa, Asia. Like, we're purely polar. We were the first company to take passengers in a commercial trip to the North Pole, and we were the first of many, and we're continually innovating our product with new items and listening to what our customers want, and we're continually adding more experiences each season as well. So where we took the first voyage to the geographic North Pole, and we continue to do that today. Can you hear me? It just says my internet's unstable. Okay, yeah. Sorry, the joys of working from home. So yeah, as I said, we took our first passengers to the North Pole in 1991, and we continue to do so. We were the first company to take clients to see the solar eclipse, and we're also doing it this year, but unfortunately there'll be no Australians on board for obvious reasons. First company to bring a circumnavigation of Antarctica, and hopefully the first of many more to come. So as I said, all we specialize in is just the polar regions, and we offer more off-ship experiences and adventure activities than any other company. And we're the world's largest company just specializing in polar itineraries. We specialize in small ships.
Sorry, Tennille, I'm just going to interrupt you.
Yep.
One of our agents has just asked, is it possible to make the slides into a full screen?
Oh, sorry, hang on. Is it, what do you mean? Is it not, is it?
I think it's, I mean, I can see sort of 3/4 of a screen and then a side panel.
Oh, is that side? Oh, that's weird. Hang on. Sorry, just give us a minute.
No, that's okay.
Is it as in the side panel of our heads? Is that what you mean?
No, I think it's where it's got the preview of the next slide.
Oh, yes. Okay, hang on.
That's all right. If you can't, that's okay.
I should be able to. I think I might need to stop sharing for a minute, then do it again.
That's all right. We'll just keep going for now. Okay. I know people are limited with time, so.
Okay, sure. Sorry, I just did the slideshow. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm not sure why that's happened. Okay, so sorry, just threw me there. So yeah, as I said, we offer more off-ship experiences and activities than any other ship, such as paddleboarding. We do kayaking, and now with our new vessel, which I'm going to speak to you about, which is the ultramarine, we even do heli hiking and heli skiing. So we've got a number of adventure options, as you can see on the left. And with our new vessel, the ultramarine, it just opens up a whole new ball game, because having twin helicopters on board our ultramarine means that we can fly over glaciers and fjords and drop you off and take you to places that no other humans have been. So it's an absolute game changer, and it's really exciting that the ultramarine will allow us to do that. At the end of the day, traveling to these areas, is it an expedition? And you know, the destinations, the entertainment, it's not necessarily about the bells and whistles of the vessel. Of course, that does help, but at the end of the day, it's about the penguins, it's about the sunsets, it's about the walruses, the polar bears, the wildlife, and the glaciers carving. So if you are at dinner and suddenly there's you know, a whale breaching, we will get you up from dinner and take you out onto the Zodiacs and go exploring, because that's what it's all about. The whole aim of the day is to actually get off the ship, and we're going to aim to do 2 excursions a day, cruising around the Zodiacs and taking you onto land. We are continually evolving our itineraries, and it was meant to run this year, but unfortunately due to COVID we had to cancel the Arctic season. But we've got a new Greenland adventure program, which is absolutely incredible, which I'll show you. And as mentioned, we're also taking passengers to see the solar eclipse this year. Now we've got a range of 5 vessels, or a fleet of 5 vessels, I should say. And I'm sure some of you know, but with Antarctica, once you've got more than 200 passengers on your ship, you can only do 1 landing. So for that reason, all of our vessels are under 200 passengers, so that we can do 2 excursions a day, because the whole aim of the day is to get you off the vessel and get you onto the shore. And once you've got a ship that's got 500 or more, they can't actually disembark. So if your client just wants to cruise around from their cabin or their suite or their restaurant and look out the window and look at the glaciers and say they've seen the penguins, that's great, but we're probably not the product for them, because we're all about getting you off and immersing yourself in the experience and standing on the snow and smelling the penguins. So sustainability is at the forefront, and last year we created our Polar Promise, and we also introduced our first annual sustainability report. So we're constantly working with the International Antarctic Association of Tour Operators to make sure that we're continually traveling in a sustainable manner. So the whole experience of traveling to these regions is an educational experience. And as I said, that's what blew me away when I traveled with Quark, the expedition guides. And you've got your glaciologists, your geologists, your penguinologists, your marine biologists, and you've just got an absolute wealth of knowledge. So a typical day, you're quite busy. It's not your, you know, your typical kind of relaxing holiday. You're going to basically wake up. You'll have an early start. They'll say over the PA, you know, it's -3 degrees outside at 6:30 a.m. and you'll be split up into 4 groups usually. If you're in the Arctic, you know, you might have polar bears, walruses, Arctic foxes. In the Antarctic, your 4 groups might be your explorers, Shackleton, Amundsen, Mawson, and they'll have notice boards all around the ship. And they might have that morning, Mawson and Shackleton groups are departing at 10 a.m. So please be ready with your life jackets, all your outer wet wear on, and be ready to depart at 10 a.m. So you would have had breakfast by then, and then you're going to go out on the Zodiacs for 3 hours, come back, you might have an hour spare, you'll have lunch. Then after lunch, they might have a lecture by the glaciologist. Then in the afternoon, you're going out on the second group, but this time you're going across to the continent and actually doing hikes around the continent. You'll come back, you might have spare time, 5 p.m. there might be polar bar talks and cocktails. Then you'll have dinner. After dinner, there might be polar trivia, or they'll be showing the film Happy Feet. So you get the idea. It's a really busy day and there's so much on offer. Of course, you don't have to go to everything, but I never missed a thing, because that's what it's all about. It's such an educational experience, and you really become an ambassador for these regions, and it kind of makes you want to make the world a little bit more better after visiting these regions. And we have a set itinerary for every single departure, of course, but the only guarantee of an expedition is that It's up to the weather gods, it's up to the captain. Like nothing is guaranteed, really. That's the only guarantee. So it depends on the weather, the wildlife, the ice conditions as to what your expedition will be and where you'll go. So our expedition guides, the longevity of our guides is about 7 years, which is pretty incredible that they all stay with us for at least 7 years. And we're the only dedicated polar company, or we're the largest dedicated polar company in the world, but we're the only polar company that have a dedicated polar academy program. So every single expedition guide, and I think this is incredible, every single year they have to go on a camp together and they do polar training and they upskill and get themselves ready for that season. And our ratio for passenger per guide is 6-to-1, which is by far higher than anyone else in the industry. Some of our competitors might have 8 passengers per one expedition guide or 10, but we're 6-to-1. And that just adds to your whole off-ship experience, which is what it's all about. It means that you can separate into smaller groups and that you can get more knowledge and expertise from these fantastic expedition guides. So also all the normal things you'd expect on, these kind of ships, in-room entertainment, but just something to point out, if anyone does specialize in groups, like we're the only company that we offer Mandarin speaking guides on every single ship. And we also do German, Spanish. So if you're wanting to do work with a special group, we certainly specialize in that. You definitely put on weight on these trips, unfortunately, even though you're quite active, the food is incredible. We can cater for any dietary requirement except for kosher. Unfortunately, it's too difficult on a ship to cater for kosher meals, but breakfast, lunch is always buffet, dinner's always 3-course a la carte, and then there's always afternoon, morning tea and canapes, drinks, etc. Wine's always included at dinner. So the pool of the poles, I just wanted to show you this slide because I really love the comparison of looking at the 2 maps. So you can see on the right, Antarctica is a continent surrounded by water. And then on the left is the Arctic, which is the polar opposite, no pun intended, which is the ocean surrounded by a number of continents. So completely opposite times of years, opposite time of year that we travel. So Antarctica, the season is November to March. So coming up at the end of this year. The Arctic is May to September, so the European summer. And Antarctica, of course, I know that you guys know this, but Antarctica's penguins, Arctic's polar bears. They will never meet if they do something seriously wrong, although nothing surprises me these days, but hopefully they never meet. Otherwise the world's over. But I guess with Antarctica, the big difference is you can't escape the wildlife. It's just everywhere. Like you're guaranteed to see hundreds or thousands of penguins and you can't escape the wildlife. You have to stay 5 meters away from the penguins, but they don't get the memo. They do not stay away from you. Whereas the Arctic is more like, imagine being on safari in Africa and you've got your binoculars out, you're looking for your polar bears, you're looking for your walrus, your Arctic fox, your beluga whale, your narwhals, like really unusual wildlife in the Arctic, but you definitely got to go searching for it more. Whereas Antarctica, there's just the plethora of wildlife in front of you. Of course, history in both. Antarctica, you've got, all your great explorers, Mawson and Shackleton, whereas the Arctic, you've got all your early settlement. And the big difference is you've got culture in the Arctic. You've got your Inuit culture, and you've got people that that still live in the Arctic today, whereas Antarctica, no one lives there. You've just got your research vessels and your research stations as well. So I did mean to convert that, to Australian dollars. So you're looking at it with us, Antarctica, around $15,000, around the $1,300 to $1,500 mark a day. And, we're not the cheapest on the market, but we are the best. We're by far the best by quality. So you might be paying an extra $100 or $200 a day, but I guarantee you every single cent is worth it when you travel with Quark. Interesting just below, and I'm sorry that the screen's not bigger. I'm not sure how I've managed that, but you can see after other, Australia's got 11%. So it's definitely a growing number of people from Australia that travel there. And what's interesting is that 16% of the travellers that are going to Antarctica are more interested in doing excursions and offboard activities, which is why we keep increasing our offboard experiences and program. So I'm sure you know where Antarctica is, but just I do often get the question, and especially during COVID, how come, Quark didn't bring the ships to Australia and do Antarctica from Australia? although it looks close on the map, on the bottom left, you can see Australia. If you're to leave from Hobart, it's a really long trip and it's a really hard trip. It's about 28 days, starts at around $40,000. So it's not for everyone, and it's a high cost, and it's a lot of sea days. So the easiest way to get to Antarctica is to fly from Australia to South America. And there's 3 entry points: Ushuaia, Punta Arenas, or Buenos Aires. And Ushuaia is where 99% of our, 90% of our departures leave from. If I just go back to that previous slide, you can see Ushuaia in that slide on the right. It's the bottom tip of South America. It's Argentina. It's in the region of Patagonia, and it's the southernmost city in the world. And it's a really cute, quaint little city. I love it. It gives me that feel for those that haven't been there, you know, like maybe like Salamanca in Hobart or Cape Town, where you've got a beautiful township surrounded by mountains. It's the gateway to Tierra del Fuego National Park as well. So anyone that's wanting to do any hiking, they might want to add an extra night. There's some really amazing restaurants. You can get amazing crayfish, lobster or crayfish, really, really cheap. And there's an interesting museum out there. You can take your stamp and get a passport to Antarctica in it, and you literally can be standing at the end there of the water and be looking at the Beagle Channel, and you can see your ship. So it's really cool the night before going for a walk down there and like looking at the ship that you're about to like sail off into the Drake Passage on. And then some trips leave from Punta Arenas, the middle picture, and that's in Chile. That's the coast of Chile. And that's where our Antarctic Express trips leave from, that will fly across the Drake, which I'll show you. And then Buenos Aires, a lot of our itineraries start from there, because on the new Ultramarine, our itineraries include the flight to and from Buenos Aires, which is my favorite city in the world, apart from Melbourne, or probably is now. Melbourne's not my favorite city these days. Anyway, you can see here a number of different itineraries. And I guess with Antarctica, there's 2 main itineraries: a shorter peninsular itinerary or the longer itinerary, which does the sub-Antarctic islands, which I'll show you in a moment. So the Antarctic season, as I mentioned, is November to March. And I've only ever been in November. I've been twice in November, and I absolutely love it because I've got nothing to compare it to, but it really is how I've always envisioned Antarctica be, just that magical, mystical, really pristine Antarctica. So winter's just finished. It's really just snow-capped mountains, fresh snow. The wildlife's arriving, massive icebergs. It's just really stunning and picturesque if you're really into photography. You're certainly still going to get lots of wildlife and lots of penguins, and all the penguins are mating and courting. On my last Antarctic expedition, which was 2019, literally just before the world ended, it seems, we saw like heaps of elephant seals as well, which was amazing. I've never ever seen elephant seals, and I reckon we saw about 50 of them. So that was because it was early in the season. But if you're wanting just that, you know, we were literally one of the first departures, so the snow was just so fresh and so deep. The amount of times it would take a step and your leg would just, you'd actually get stuck in the snow and someone would pull you up. It was really fun. Sometimes we'd walk up the top of hills and we would actually slide down on our bum. Whereas the end of the season, obviously the snow is beginning to melt a little bit more. So that's early season. And then high season is December, January, and early Feb. You're going to have a lot more sunlight. And this is when all you've got the penguins hatching as well. And so you can have nearly 24 hours of sun. It's definitely high season. Just bear in mind, of course, your airfares, accommodation, pre-post, everything's high season as well. So that's your little Adelie penguins on the left. So they're the Adelie with the white ring around its eye. The Gen 2 penguins have got like a big snowflake around their eye, and then the chin strap have got the line under the chin. So they're the 3 main penguins that you will see on the peninsula. And if your clients want to see the king penguins, they need to go to South Georgia, because you don't see the king penguins on the peninsula. And then late season is Feb to March, and it's whale season. So if I was to go to Antarctica again, which my dream is to get to South Georgia, but I would love to go in February, and I'd love to see whale season, because, you know, some of my colleagues and friends that have been in February, they're just like the amount of whales that you see. But there's no bad time between November and March. Of course, if your client's got something specific, always ask them what they envision, what they want to see. That could determine when they want to go. If they're price conscious, avoid December, January, because it's high season, so premium prices. That picture on the left, that's South Georgia, and that's your king penguin and your chick king penguins. I'll just go through some of our itineraries. So this is kind of your classic trip, and this is what I've done twice. This particular one includes the flights from Buenos Aires, but depending what ship, you might just start. And if your client doesn't want to have that little package, they don't have to have the flight package included if they're doing things before and after. But basically, you'll have a pre-night in Ushuaia. Every single vessel, you'll have a pre-night, and you'll have a welcome information session the night before, just to be told, you know, what time to leave your bags out, what time to walk to the port to get your buses to the port. It's very Argentinian style. You get on a bus for about 100 meters to go through immigration, and then get off the bus and walk. It's quite funny, actually. And then you get on your ship, and we're going to leave Ushuaia, head through the Beagle Channel, and then we're going to hit the notorious Drake Passage. So you can see it says under Punta Arenas Drake Passage, and it's one of the most notorious crossings in the world. It's like all sailors want to kind of, you know, cruise across the Drake Passage, and it can be rough. They call it the Drake Shake or the Drake Lake. Lake meaning completely flat. Drake Shake might be a wave or two, but there's a doctor on we have 2 doctors on every single ship, actually, not just one. And if people are feeling sick, we recommend people to take seasick tablets. But the newer ships are built with new science and technology with the X-bow to get across the Drake quicker and more sturdier, using ship stabilizers as well. And then it's really exciting. The first day is kind of quite busy with, you know, different groups. You're going to get your boots, you're going to get your jackets, the kayakers are having meetings, doing all your safety demonstrations, but then there's all sorts of lectures. You're just entertained. It just went so quick, my last expedition. I can't believe 10 days just flew by like that. And then there's kind of a competition, you know, for you traveling across the Drake Passage, you can see lots of bird life, and most of our ships have an open bridge policy, so you can be in the bridge with the captain, and which I loved hanging out there, and you can see the waved albatross and lots of birds. I didn't see any dolphins, but other people did. And then it's exciting when you see your first iceberg. They usually have a competition like who can spot the first iceberg, and then suddenly it's icebergs for days, because you're just seeing icebergs for the next week, which is pretty spectacular. And when we actually hit the Antarctic convergence, which is pretty special, you're actually in Antarctic waters, we'll have a bit of a celebration and champagne as well. But this itinerary ranges from, you know, 10, 11 or 12 days. The last one I did was 11, and I think the previous one 7 or 8 years ago was a 10-day one. So you're going to have, you know, depending on your trip, 5 to 6 days on the Antarctic Peninsula, traveling around, which will give you at least, you know, 8 to 10 excursions. So that's the most popular itinerary that people choose, purely because of price and time as well. And then we've got the Antarctic Express. So this is the one that I was mentioning before, that starts from Punta Arenas. So this trip, instead of flying across to Buenos Aires, you could just fly straight into Santiago and down to Punta Arenas. You'll have one pre-night in Punta Arenas, and then we're going to take a charter flight. Now, it's really strict that you can only take 15 kilos of luggage, because the plane is weighed. It's got a limit that it can take. It's about 2.5-hour flight, and we're going to fly across the Drake and land on King George Island, which is a Chilean naval base. And your clients must be fit and able to pick up their luggage and walk for about 15 minutes onto the vessel. And then you're still essentially spending the same amount of time on the peninsula than what that previous trip did. So you can see that 11 or 12 days, whereas this is done in 8 days, because you've freed up the Drake Passage. It is a bit more of a premium cost because of that charter flight. I think it's a really great option to keep in mind just moving forward, because traditionally a lot of Australians would kind of, you know, do 4 to 6 weeks. I'd go and do Antarctica for 10 to 14 days, and then they'll do your Buenos Aires, your Rio, your Peru. I think that whole landscape's going to change, and they're more just going to stick to Chile and Argentina. But if your clients are wanting to avoid Argentina, they could easily just fly into Santiago. They could even fly up to the Atacama Desert first, which is just a short flight from Santiago, spend 3 nights in the Atacama Desert, fly down to Punta Arenas, then do Antarctica. They've literally just seen the 2 world's most extreme deserts in the one trip, and do 3 nights in Patagonia afterwards. And it's 2 weeks. That sounds amazing. If only we could actually go, that would be awesome. But it's a really great trip. I think just with the current climate of the world, to keep that in mind, the Fly the Drake. And then South Georgia, is the cherry on top of the red velvet ice cake, so to speak. So we are doing the peninsula, like I've already talked about, but we're also visiting South Georgia. And South Georgia is like the Galapagos of the South, basically. And this is like your David Attenborough Antarctica. If your clients or yourself has that vision of 100,000 pairs of king penguins, which I'll show you in a minute. I hope the video works. I forgot about that presenting. Hopefully it should work. If they want that vision, that's South Georgia. And there's a lot of history out here as well, because it's where Ernest Shackleton's grave is buried. So he played an important part of Antarctic history. And weather dependent on the way back from South Georgia to the peninsula, you can sometimes see Elephant Island, which also played an important role in Shackleton's quest to Antarctica, if anyone knows the story of Endurance. So it is a longer trip, but make sure that you always mention to your clients, because some people don't realize, they think they book an Antarctic Peninsula trip and they're going to see 100,000 king penguins. You only get that on South Georgia. So if you're unsure, give them an itinerary of both, or just have the conversation, but don't just assume and give them South Georgia, because you could be giving them a $20,000 trip and they're scared away, when they could just be wanting to do a $13,000 or $14,000 trip. But it is kind of like, if I could go anywhere tomorrow, whether it be Greenland, high-end Canadian Arctic, Russian Arctic, or Antarctica, I would choose to go to South Georgia. That's my personal dream, to get there. And then this trip, Epic Antarctica, does absolutely everything that we've already mentioned, but it's also including the Falkland Islands. So after Ushuaia, our first stop is the Falklands. A lot of history from the Falkland War in 1982, and then you've got people that live there. So really interesting. A lot of wildlife still. You get the macaroni penguins there, waved albatross. So really interesting place to visit. And then this trip also visits, goes below the Antarctic Circle. So this is later in the season, when the ice has melted a bit, and we endeavour to cross the Antarctic Circle. And that's an imaginary line, as we know, but it's a big bucket list for some people to say they've crossed the Antarctic Circle. So this trip takes in absolutely everything. So hopefully this video works, but this is what I was talking about with South Georgia. Is that working, Lara, for you? It's one of the most windiest places on Earth, South Georgia. So literally 100,000 pairs of king penguins, and your elephant seals. And of course, Sir Ernest Shackleton's grave is buried here as well. So that gives you an idea of South Georgia. And as I said, you have to stay, so this is a Weddell seal. You have to stay 5 meters from the wildlife, but it's really impossible in Antarctica. It just comes up to you. Whereas you definitely wouldn't get this experience in the Arctic. We wouldn't let you get this close to the animals in the Arctic. But here, and she's not doing the wrong thing, because she's just sitting there and it's come up to her. So the expedition guide's always very strict. There's always like flags and where you're allowed to walk and where not, because safety and preserving the environment is number one. So just moving on to the Arctic, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the itineraries in Antarctica. And just with the Arctic, it's a great big playground. As you can see, there's so many different areas to explore. You've got the Canadian Arctic, Greenland, Russian Arctic, high Russian Arctic and high Canadian Arctic, and Svalbard. So we were the first company to take anyone to the geographic North Pole, as I mentioned at the beginning. And we still run this trip twice a year on a nuclear Russian vessel called 50 Years of Victory. It's no 5-star luxurious vessel, but it's an amazing icebreaker that will take you where no other ships can take you. We fly you from Helsinki to Murmansk. I can never pronounce that properly, Murmansk. And then we take you to the geographic North Pole. So this trip's incredible. It's not for everyone. It's to give you an idea, it starts at $47,000. And unlike the South Pole, the North Pole like moves every year because it's on 3 meters of ice. So you can't even put a marker on it, but you'll literally get to the North Pole and everything below you is south, and you're literally on top of the world. So on my Arctic trip in 2019, we made it to 80 degrees north. That was really exciting. We all stood on the top of the ship and got a photo, but we were literally 80 degrees north. So we were closer to the North Pole than we were to the Arctic Circle, which was really exciting to know that I was literally the highest person in the world that day. So this is the ship, the 50 Years of Victory, and there's a hot air balloon on it, but like absolutely incredible trip. So I've got some footage of that. You can see is an icebreaker breaking ice to get to the North Pole. In Antarctica, you don't need an icebreaker. We're not breaking ice. We're just cruising around the peninsula and to South Georgia, whereas to get to the geographic North Pole, we certainly need to be on an icebreaker. There's still lots of like there's actually a pool on this ship, and there's like a library, and there's still like a polar shop. There's lots of room, but it's definitely not that. You can just look at it and imagine what that ship's going to be like. But just like that is for your bucket listers, for people that have traveled everywhere that want something completely unique. Now, if your client's going to the Arctic, their motivation is to see a polar bear for the first time, their best option would be to do a trip around Svalbard, or otherwise known as Spitsbergen. And this is what I did because I wanted to see a polar bear. And we saw quite a few polar bears. My polar bears, unfortunately, were quite far away. You just don't know. Whereas the trip after me, apparently they saw like 30 polar bears. So you just don't know. Whereas with Antarctica, you were going to see thousands of penguins. So Svalbard, or Spitsbergen, is an archipelago owned by Norway. So you can see Lara's background there is Oslo. We're going to fly from Oslo, very fitting. Is that where Lara's off to tomorrow, maybe? And we'll take a flight and fly into Longyearbyen, which is the township. And it's a really quaint, cute little town. They all include, or there's a couple of different options with Svalbard trips. You can either fly and get straight onto the ship, or you can do a pre-night. I did a pre-night. It was really cute walking around the town. On the flight, there was just so many fit people in their activewear. I was thinking, what's going on? Am I on the wrong flight? But it turned out the next day it was the North Pole Marathon. So that was pretty cool walking around the town as they're all running around. And then we're going to navigate around Svalbard. Now, there's over 3,000 polar bears here. So there's more polar bears than humans. So your best chance of seeing a polar bear is around doing a Spitsbergen highlight trip. This is a 7-day one. There's 10-day ones. There's longer ones. If you're really wanting to increase your chances of seeing polar bears, do a longer trip. Best time to do that is May, June, July. The wildlife in the Arctic is just so unusual to what we're used to as well. Like even just seeing reindeers, for me, I was just like, wow, they're so beautiful. I never had seen reindeers, and there was so many reindeers, and we saw Arctic foxes. One day we saw about 100 walruses, and that was the highlight of my trip, more than seeing the polar bears, because the polar bears, the whole experience of looking for the polar bears was just so exciting, because everyone's like at the end of the ship with their binoculars and cameras, and it was just so exciting watching it for ages. But with the walruses, we were about 10 meters from them, and we had to break into extra smaller groups that day. Everyone had to turn their lenses off. No one was allowed to talk. They had to make sure even their jacket didn't make noises as they walked, because we were so close to them. And the marine biologist, Annie, said she'd never seen anything like it. And you know, when you think, oh, yeah, they'd probably say that to everyone. But speaking to her afterwards, she said, no, she's never seen that many walruses like so close. So really incredible wildlife. And the narwhals, beluga whales. We saw a beluga whale, the white whales. So just us in Australia, the wildlife that you get is just so different in the Arctic, which makes it really special and spectacular. So the Arctic Express, this is flying from Iceland up into Greenland. We've got a number of different Greenland itineraries. And then this is a high-end Russian Arctic trip. And this is on an icebreaker as well. And then we've got high-end Canadian trips, which are at more of the end of the season. So we're hoping, we're still hopeful for some of the Arctic next year, but obviously we just don't know. No one knows what's going on, but hopefully at least the Canadian Arctic, because it's at the end of the season. So there's a number of different options that we do in Canada. And then this is the new trip that I mentioned at the beginning, how I said we just continue to be innovative and try and create new and unique itineraries. But this Greenland adventure, and I've never been to Greenland or Iceland. I'm not sure if some of you guys have, but they say Greenland should be called Iceland and Iceland should be called Greenland, or that's the Vikings tried to trick us because they didn't want people to come and see their beautiful areas. But Greenland has got the largest fjord system in the world. And so many people that I speak to that have traveled a lot, done many expeditions, they all just say Greenland's their favorite. Like everyone just loves Greenland and just Really, obviously, you've got the culture there, you've got the Inuit people, and just the largest fjord system in the world, and those great big tabular icebergs. So just really scenic, really beautiful, really active, and really adventurous. And this Greenland adventure, excuse me, is on board the new Ultramarine. It was meant to run this year, but of course it hasn't. So it's going to run next year. But we actually take passengers and we fly them off the ship in the helicopter over the fjords and drop them off. And they spend the day or sometimes the night camping in a yurt in Greenland, and then walking along the tundra with the chef and have the most memorable meal of their life. So that is just such a unique itinerary. No one else does anything like that. So that's the Greenland adventure that will be running next year, and there's lots of hiking and walking across the tundra. So you're traveling by land, sea and air for that one, and you're going to places that no one else has been and that no one else can get to, because the only reason we can get there is because of our helicopters. So not too much longer, guys, probably just a little bit less than 10 minutes. I just realized I've gone a little bit over, but just with our fleet, I'll quickly run you through these. So this is our brand new Ultramarine, and it's an absolute game changer. And on that trip in the Arctic that I would keep talking about that I was on, they called staff and people, agents on for meals and everything into a room. And that's when they said, next year, we're starting to build this new ship. It'll be ready in 2021. And that's when I thought, wow, I want to work for this company one day. And it's now ready, all ready to go, just nowhere to go just yet. And it's absolute game changer. This is purposely built for the polar regions, keeping in mind our 30 years experience. So all of our knowledge, all of our experience has been carefully thought about when designing this ship. Our competitors, who I'm sure you know who the 5-star competitors are that do the polar regions, and great companies they are, but I don't feel that you can compare us, because we're only built for the polar regions. We're not doing the whole world. We're not doing Asia, Europe, everywhere else. We're just traveling to Antarctica and the Arctic. It's a fully sustainable vessel. It turns waste into energy. We've got the twin helicopters, 20 Zodiacs. We can get everyone off in 20 minutes. And it's got everything you'd expect, your 5-star, your gym, your sauna, your spa, all the extras that you would really expect out of a five-star vessel. But it's absolutely beautiful, and that is for sale now for the Arctic and Antarctica 22-23. World Explorer is also a 5-star vessel, and that was built 2 years ago, and that's also got, it's got a Lockatine spa. This one's also got a pool, and it's also got a running track outside. As I said, you know, some people want those bells and whistles, but to travel to these regions in style obviously adds to the experience. And all of the ships still have that same ratio of six passengers per one expedition guide. Then we've got 3.5 4-star vessel, the Ocean Adventurer. And this is the one I went to the Arctic on. And it's such an amazing ship because it's really big, but it's really small numbers. It's only got 128 passengers. It's got that more old school feel, but again, it's all about I wasn't fussed about that. I was just all about doing the offshore experiences and activities. And a few years ago, it had a multi-million-dollar refurb. And then we've also got the Ocean Diamond, which has got 189 passengers. And that's also similar, about a 3.5 4-star. So we do have something. The Ultramarine is certainly not for everyone. Some people don't care about, the ship itself and just want to have that experience. And that's where the Ocean Diamond and the Ocean Adventurer is a great option. And 50 Years of Victory, I mentioned, we just charter it twice a year, but you can see how basic the rooms are there. But this is the one that takes you to the geographic North Pole and does have a saltwater pool and sauna, and it's still got a bar. And the Captain Kalenikov, I didn't show any itineraries, but this one does the Russian Arctic, which we just charter a couple of times a year, but we don't have any itineraries for this one at the moment. So that's our fleet of vessels, covering all kinds of clients, you know, from your basic to your 5-star. And I just can't stress the off-board activities that we offer, your hiking, and now with the Ultramarine being able to do all the heli experiences. On the Ultramarine, every single passenger that books the Ultramarine receives in the price a 20-minute scenic ride in the helicopter. And I was fortunate enough this year to have, I've actually done it twice, the Antarctica flight out of Melbourne, and to get that bird's eye view perspective. Like, nothing compares to doing Antarctica and being on the ice at all. Nothing compares to it. But to get that bird's eye view is pretty spectacular. And I think to actually be on the ship and to be out doing excursions and then to be up in the air and get the bird's eye view of the continent and see how sheer and large the continent is, and how, you know, with Antarctica, how much of it's covered in ice, whereas the Arctic's quite different. It's not all covered in ice. It's very rugged as well. And you've got the tundra, but just to get those different perspectives is really incredible. So every passenger gets that included in the price for the ultramarine. So we also offer kayaking, sleeping on the ice, stand-up paddleboarding, which is quite unique. And something else that's great is with most ships, to do kayaking, it can range from $1,200 to $1,500, I guess, depending what ship, which is a lot of money when you've already paid, you know, $12,000, $13,000 for your expedition. But we now offer just a one-day kayak experience, which is great. That'd be great for someone like me. I don't want to do the kayaking every day, but I'd love to just try it. So we offer the one-day experience if people want to do that as well. And we do the sleeping in the ice, which you can see in the top right, heli landing, heli skiing, bike riding in Greenland. So lots of adventurous activities. And the polar plunge is completely free. We don't charge you for that. We'll give you a certificate. And then you can jump in the hot spa or pool afterwards. So just, I know I've gone through quite a lot of information. I guess one of the main things is I didn't really touch on at the beginning, but like, we know, let's be honest, well, we're not getting a lot of bookings yet in Australia. I did have one last week out of Melbourne, one person to Antarctica with an agent, and I did a little happy dance. That was very exciting. But we anticipate the last quarter that, you know, things are going to start to get really busy, because there's a whole lot of people out there with a crap load of money, excuse my French, not me, but there's a lot of people, professionals that have been working, they're ready to travel, they're sick of lockdowns, there's only so many couches and TVs that you can buy, and they're ready to travel, and they want to travel with a reputable company. They want to travel with a company that's got COVID safe policies in place, and they want to go to remote destinations now more than ever. And those destinations that have been held off as bucket list are no longer necessarily going to be bucket lists, because people have had their freedom taken away. They're just going to do it now. So if you do have clients interested now, there's really incredible savings at the moment, because there's a lot of like pay in full and get extra discounts. I've totally left the most important slide out of this presentation. I can't believe I've done that, but I don't know how I've done that. Our COVID safe policy, which I'll email through to Lara, but we've created a COVID safe policy, and like safe is for science. It's got all the different pillars in there, and your clients 30 days out, they can change for any reason, have a credit or get their money back. If they can't travel due to our governments, they'll get their money back. We're really flexible. Overnight, we've announced where everyone will be getting tested on board. We've got isolation cabins, so everything's in place. Our Antarctic season will be running this year. Unfortunately, we're not sure if Australians will be on board, but like, we're going strong. I mean, we're getting loads of bookings from America and Europe, and we anticipate we're going to follow suit. So I know it's so frustrating at the moment, but I think 3-4 months, we're all just going to be like absolutely busy booking holidays. That's what I certainly hope. So we do have reservation guides in Melbourne. A lot of people don't realize that, but you can just bring normal hours and you'll go through to our polar travel advisors. We've got 3 in Melbourne. I'm based in Melbourne. I'm available if anyone wants to do events, training, marketing, anything like that. Now is the time to be planting the seed, you know, for your clients' itineraries for the end of the year when they're ready to book. And we've got a fantastic training program called Polar Pro, which I think Lara's already sent through. But I mean, you've already done this training, I know, but if you do want a bit more and don't want to listen to my voice, you can do this as 6 modules. And if you send me the certificate by the end of the month, I've extended it. I'll send you a bottle of, I'll send you a $20 Dan Murphy's voucher. I know it won't get you a bottle of Verve, but it'll get you a nice Yarrow burn or something. So, but yeah, we're super, super excited to be working with you guys. And we've got an amazing promotion this month as well. And you also get a voucher for yourself, but there's $1,000 off the cabin price. Plus your clients get an onboard credit. If you need Facebook tiles, anything, I'm here, I'm working every day and I'm ready to help you all. So I might leave it there and just see if there's any questions. And I'm very sorry. It's been like 18 months, I think, since I've done a webinar. So I don't know how I've had I'm sorry that you've had to see the next slide on every single slide. That must have been very annoying, but I'll have a look at these questions. So if anyone wants to ask questions, go ahead, and thanks for listening.
Does anyone have any questions?
I can't get into that chat. I think
I can see it, but I don't think there are any questions, or otherwise feel free to unmute yourselves and either ask any questions of Tennille or of myself. Just reiterating the deal that Creative Cruising has at the moment with Quark. So we do have $1,000 off the cabin price, $150 onboard credit per person, which is absolutely fantastic. And that's actually all combinable with all of the early booking bonuses. So it's an amazing discount for those clients that are really wanting to lock it in, make sure that they're getting on board. With the expedition ships obviously being so much smaller than the big white ships, the numbers really are very limited. It's just not something they can leave for much longer. So Tennille, we have a question. Do you have single cabins, and is there a large supplement for solo travelers?
Yes and yes is the short answer. Unfortunately, on a ship, we do have solo cabins, and unfortunately, solo travelers usually do pay a bit more of a premium. It depends on I'd have to have a look, but it's usually around an extra 3/4 of the fare. It's not quite double, but you do pay a lot more, unfortunately. Hopefully that answers your question.
We've just got a few thank yous coming in for a wonderful presentation, Tennille.
Thanks, everyone. Sorry, again about that slide. And if anyone, like I said, anyone that, even if you're not in Melbourne, I'm happy to have chats, virtual events, whatever you want. So just please get in touch. And if you're not already on our Quark Facebook group, you can join that group as well.
And just a reminder that all of the Quark itineraries are all on our website on Creative Cruising, or you can call through to our res guys at any time as well. So I think we'll leave it there for today. So I know people have got busy days. So thank you very much to Tennille, and thank you very much everyone for attending.